Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Cleverti Talks. These talks aim to share relevant content in the area of IT, as we sincerely believe that in-house knowledge can and should be shared. Today's talk is given by our senior developer João Rebelo and has the team Jenkins and OpenId Connect. You can ask questions during the session via chat, and soon we will try answering each one of them. I hope you enjoy. João, it's up to you.
So yeah, guys. The topic of this talk will be about Jenkins as well, and again, but this time I will start. I hope that you've had the opportunity to listen to the previous talk. We ended up setting up a master Jenkins server with a pipeline running on it, but on the matters of authentication and authorization, it was what Jenkins had by default, which isn't much, and it doesn't apply to most of the organizations we know of, ours including. So that's the point of our talk today. On the second thought, I should have named this Securing Jenkins Authorization and Authentication Talk instead of only Jenkins and OpenID, but never mind about that. It is done. So the point of this talk is to show an easy way to set up Jenkins with an already established OpenID Connect enterprise system. For example, let's say that you managed to convince your superiors that adopting Jenkins as a core piece of your CI/CD stack was the best choice, is the best choice, and is the future, but they are still doubting how will it integrate with their current user management platform system. And that's where the plugin architecture of Jenkins shines. And that's what I will talk a little bit about in this talk. So let's get started. We will go through these few topics. Just a little bit about the context of everything that we'll touch upon, like Jenkins, OpenID Connect, Keycloak. Those will be the three main pieces, the three main actors that will be the focus of this talk. Then we'll go through a little bit of a quick setup, questions, and then there's the sources in the slides as well that I've used to prepare the talk. So Jenkins, what is Jenkins? I hope you've, as previously said, that you guys have managed to listen to the previous talk. Jenkins is an open source CI/CD tool. Open source, which basically means without cost, with a plugin architecture that allows you to basically get your own creativity working within Jenkins very easily. And that's the main point. I've talked a little bit about why Jenkins in the previous talk, and mentioned that this is a big selling point, the plugin architecture, because Jenkins is by default a store where there are many plugins already available, and one of them will be used in this talk, which allows us to easily integrate with an OpenID Connect provider through a specific plugin. So what is OpenID Connect? Basically, OpenID Connect is, as the slide says, a simple identity layer on top of the OAuth 2.0 protocol. I'm not going to delve much into it, but let's just say that OpenID Connect comes with an identity layer on top of the authorization protocol OAuth 2.0, which gives us a standard upon which we can query user details on top of an already established authentication authorization protocol, in this case OAuth 2.0. And Keycloak is a tool that is an open source identity and access management application. Besides having a lot more features built into it, it comes with out-of-the-box support for the OpenID Connect standard protocol, and it's the application that I'm most familiar with, and will serve as the de facto OpenID Connect server for the demo. And now let's quickly go through the demo. I hope you guys had the opportunity once again to listen to the previous talk. I'm going to resume a little bit what was done before, where Jenkins is, and I'll start the demo from there. But basically, in the previous talk, we had a Jenkins server like this one with a pipeline setup. It ran, in this case, it is failing. And now what we are going to do is that our authentication authorization provider to Jenkins. So what we will do in this case is having a Keycloak instance, assuming that it is the enterprise system we are going to connect to. In this instance, for the demo, we are going to have a realm, a Jenkins demo realm. We'll be creating, we have a bunch of users already set up, saying, okay, I'll need to log in again. And I hope you guys don't mind, but I'm not using HTTPS for most of these sessions because it would just go out of topic for the talk. Assume that everything is under HTTPS, assuming best security practices. The only point of this talk will be to put Jenkins and Keycloak talking together. So I already have a bunch of users in the platform, a bunch of groups. Now I'm going to prepare Keycloak to integrate with Jenkins, and I'll do that by establishing a new client, which Jenkins will use. We'll give it a name. It will be Jenkins client, a root URL, which will point to our Jenkins root URL server. And then we're going to change things a little bit here. We're going to put the access type as confidential. We're going to enter another bunch of valid URLs for redirection to Keycloak. Just a matter for safety. We will also be adding the secure URL, which is under HTTPS on port 8443. And then we're going to save this client. One essential thing as well, we'll be needing this secret, the client secret code, but we'll get to that. Important thing is a mapper. We're going to need to create a new mapper here for the group membership that will allow us to have Jenkins query the group to which a user will belong to. And this token claim name is also important because it's the identifier that the user will use, Jenkins will use to check for the groups that the user belongs to. We're going to also create a few groups, nothing special. For example, Jenkins admin group, and another one which will have the read permissions, which I'll call Jenkins read group. And then let's say we have our users. We want João, because I'm the person in charge here, let's say like that, to be the Jenkins admin user, given this group access. And we have, for example, Dimitri's, which will have the read permissions by belonging to the Jenkins read admin group. Okay, so pretty much Keycloak is already set up. I'm gonna go straight to Jenkins now. I'm using the default credentials now. I have access to everything, and I'm gonna set this up. I've already pre-prepared things. I've installed the required plugin, as I've said previously. Like in this case, the plugin is OpenID Connect authentication plugin. And to set up that plugin, what we are going to do is in the Manage Jenkins console, global security, we are going to change things a little bit. Instead of using Jenkins own user database, we're going to change to the login with OpenID Connect, which is the thing that comes with the plugin I've mentioned. We're gonna go to the realm settings of Keycloak. We're gonna pick up this well-known OpenID configuration endpoint, and We're going to set it up here, change things a little bit. Instead of using HTTPS, we're going to use HTTP. Remember that I talked about the client secret. It will be required here with the client ID as well. So let's fetch that. We have the Jenkins client as the client ID. Let's paste it there. Let's go over to the credentials, paste the secret. Cool. Save. Because the world isn't perfect. We still need to come here. Now, under manual configuration, we'll change things a little bit. See that all of this already comes pre-filled with some information. We're just gonna, whenever we do a logout, we want to redirect back to Jenkins. So this is it. We set this up here. In the advanced settings, for example, for us to have this beautiful name here in the top right corner of the screen, admin in this case, we'll need to fetch it from some places in the token that comes with which comes from Keycloak, and for that I'm going to set up some predefined variables, for example, preferred underscore username, and for the full name as well. And then remember the token group membership that we created. It will be used here, and that's where Jenkins will fetch the groups from. Then, how do we specify the groups? It comes here under the authorization tab. We pick matrix-based security. We add a new group because technically it is done this way. We add the group that we just created with a /, starting with a /, in this case, Jenkins-admin and Jenkins /read in this case, and then we're going to set up all the permissions. For admin, we're going to give overall administer permissions. For read, we are going to give read-only permissions like read, view. There's another one here as well, read, and then read, and yeah, we're going to save. And as you can see, I no longer have access with the user I was using previously. I need to log out. It will give me an error because that's how things are going. So I tried, let's try it again. I tried accessing Jenkins on port 8090, as you can see, and it automatically redirects me to our Keycloak instance for the authentication to be set. I'm gonna use the João user. Okay, cool. I've got my name here. I've got all the permissions. I can manage Jenkins. I can even look up the pipeline that was failing. So now I'm going to show you Dimitri's user group. So I've logged out. And Dimitri's doesn't have access to the management console. It cannot run builds, as you can see. It can only check the status, which is pretty useful if, let's say, you're a project manager or so, and you just want to check out the building status. For users that are not currently mapped with any group, what they will see is they will authenticate. For example, we had a user called Manuel. If Manuel logs into Jenkins, it will give him. You will have an access denied permission because he doesn't have permissions, the required permissions to mess around with Jenkins. And that is it. Very quick setup of a Jenkins with a Keycloak instance server. I hope you guys liked it. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions that you want answered, or just quick chat, or shall we move to the coffee break for those to be asked? I don't know.
Thank you, João. Another excellent talk, as you are used to. Let's move on the question and answer round. So whoever wants to, feel free to leave your questions in the chat. The first question is from Clem about permissions. Thank you again, João.
The permissions, yeah, sure. By permissions, you mean the group permissions? So by permissions, I'm going to go back here again. I'm going to use my user, the Keycloak user. I'm going to go to Manage Jenkins, like Global Security, configure Global Security. And then here on the authorization, we'll have a matrix-based security. There are some plugins that improve on this. For example, what I can currently do is like personalize what pipelines a user can see or not. By default, they'll have access to everything or nothing at all. There are a few plugins that help with that, but for this simple instance, this is the way to do it. Like you add a user here that will come from the Keycloak authentication access token. The OpenID access token will contain the user groups that the user has access or belongs to. And then you need to configure these groups here, those groups here, as for Jenkins to fetch them and map the credentials they have within the Jenkins server instance. Did that help?
Thank you, João. I think the explanation was helpful. So we remain open to more questions. We remind for those who have not had the opportunity that the first episode of Jenkins series is available on Cleverti's YouTube channel. We will leave the link in the chat and later in the video of this talk on YouTube. By the way, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to Cleverti's channel. All talks are available on our channel as well as the podcasts we are organizing. Are there any more questions? Okay, it looks like there is one more question about how the group maps with Keycloak. Can you please answer, João?
Okay, so the permissions aren't configured in the Keycloak. The Keycloak only returns the accesses, the configurations for the users. The permissions themselves are configured on the application side, which makes sense because the application, will know the internal stuff and whatever comes from it. What Keycloak will have is basically what the user, the current state of the user, For example, whenever Jenkins authenticates against the Keycloak instance, it will fetch an access token. Inside that access token, there will be a bunch of information for that user. In this case, username, there might be an email, a first name. We can configure whatever is returned for that specific client on the client's mappings, on these mappers here. And in this case, what was needed for the demo was like the group membership, which will return the users that the groups that user belongs to. But the permissions themselves of what a user can do belonging to each group are like configured here in Jenkins, at least in its simplest form.
I think there are no more questions, so I thank you on behalf of Cleverti, João, for another fantastic talk. I hope you can all meet soon for another episode of Cleverti Talks. Thank you all. I hope you enjoyed. See ya.
Thank you.